So hello again, Jason Kunish from US Freedom Flyers for another call with yet another victory concerning the mandates for federal contractors.
Yes.
Could you explain what this victory is about and how it came about?
Sure. And it's not just for federal contractors, but really, the last time we spoke, we used the analogy of two legs, and the first leg was the OSHA mandate that was kicked out. Really, what it is it's a three-legged bar stool, and the more time goes on, and the more we're standing up and saying no, we're not going to do this, and the more we're fighting back against it, both privately when we're having discussions with colleagues or in the court system. Really now the third leg as of today of these mandates is coming apart, and really the whole thing
is the federal employees.
And so there's OSHA. So we'll go through the whole thing.
Okay.
And we'll also talk about if you want the suit that US Freedom Flyers has filed and why that's really important. So again, so there's really three mandates that affect most Americans, and one is the OSHA, which is the occupational health part of the government, and that involves employees of companies that have, or I should say, they're employees of more than 100 in these companies. Mm-hmm. Now, that first mandate that was struck down in Texas and supported again, I think, in Louisiana in the 5th District Court. So that's now on a stay. That's stopped. The other part of this was healthcare workers. Now, in the state of Ohio, the state of Florida, and also now coming up nationwide, the federal mandate that has to do with healthcare workers is being struck down. And these are when I say struck down, these are being brought in front of judges and being heard. And the judge selection is relatively random, but again and again and again, these mandates are being struck down. There hasn't been a single win for the government in any of these things. And so that's really encouraging. Really what we're doing is it's a snowball going down the hill and getting more and more momentum and getting bigger and bigger. And so that's good. Now, in addition to that, there's the federal contractor issue. So anyone who works for a company that is a contractor with the federal government, even if you never step foot in a federal building, if you don't go to work in any of this stuff, if you never actually handle federal business in any way, just because you're employed by that company, they're saying you have to get vaccinated as well. And so US Freedom Flyers, among other groups, have filed suit in different courts around the country. And so, for example, US Freedom Flyers has filed a 50-page lawsuit in Florida in the Middle District near Tampa that has to do with these federal contractors. And what we're doing is we've filed on 14 different counts. And without running through all 50 pages and reading this to you, it's just kind of boring. If I could just read quickly the little snippet, it's just a paragraph to really explain what the government is trying to have us do and what our response is. And what we're saying is that the real driving force behind mandates has been to compel more of the population of the United States to become vaccinated, an objective that is beyond the reach of Congress, let alone the executive branch, which is the president. And the purported goal of these executive orders is to decrease worker absence, reduce labor costs, and improve efficiency of contractors and subcontractors where they are performing work for the federal government. Now, the president's EO, the executive order, will have the opposite effect by forcing the termination of thousands of employees and essential workers from the critical supply chain and transportation industries that are already overstressed. And so that's really the crux of our argument. The government is coming out and saying we need to get everybody vaccinated. We need to do this so that we can have integrity in the supply chain, and so we can have seamless transition of goods. Yet they're failing in the federal contractor front to prove that terminating thousands and thousands of employees is going to do any appreciable good to the supply chain that's already under stress. And I'm assuming that's the way
Right.
in Belgium and France and everywhere else. It's a huge problem here in the United States. And so
Yes.
that's what we're doing. And so today, also a couple things happened. Several states, including Georgia, South Carolina, and others, brought suit against the federal government in a separate case against the federal contractor part. And they had a great success today. The judge struck it down and they said, we are not going to implement this. This is against the law. This is unconstitutional. It's illegal and no authority to do it, which is good. Next up is going to be our case. That's going to be heard in front of a judge, like I said, in Florida. And the good thing about the Florida case also is that side by side, there are different, there are other court hearings going on. For example, the mask mandate on transportation, and whether it's the federal level or county level, you can't go into certain places without masks. So that's also being fought. And the judges are coming back and they're asking questions of the federal government that's making it look as though the federal government is like, wait a second, we didn't plan this correctly. We didn't think all of this through. We're being pushed back on our heels. And again, no matter where these are coming in front of judges in the United States, it's being struck down time and again because they're unlawful, they're illegal, and they're unconstitutional. So that's a huge win, and that's really exciting news.
That is exciting. That is exciting. And you mentioned healthcare workers. So is that all healthcare workers? How are they affected? Because I just read an article about today's ruling, and they did say that the majority of healthcare workers are affected by this decision that was made today, which means the mandate is illegal and that they don't have to get vaccinated, while the government is saying no, keep going, you still have to do it, so whatever. But so does that concern all healthcare workers, most healthcare workers, private also healthcare workers, because there are a lot of private hospitals?
Right, it's both and all. This is a continuing fight. And so the analogy I've used many times is, in the US, we've got baseball and we have the World Series. And at the end of the season, you've got 7 games, each with 9 innings. It's a very long process. And so my analogy is that this is like the World Series, that we are getting base hit after base hit. There's small incremental wins, but the game isn't over yet. And so to answer your question about specifically with the healthcare workers, it's a win for most. It's not a win yet for everybody, because there are still private hospitals and healthcare centers that are having their own mandates. Now, what's being struck down is from the federal level. And but another part of this we view is that these companies, whether they're in the transportation industry, whether they're in healthcare or elsewhere, they're kind of getting the support in their spine or the guts to have their own mandates because they assume that the federal government will support them. And so when we make these small strides, these base hits, as I was saying, these small wins, it's really chipping out the entire argument. So it's a good thing for everybody.
Got it.
Long term, short term, it's good for a select few.
Got it. Oh, God. Oh, okay. And so to get back to the pilots and the transport workers, how are they affected? And how could passengers be affected with all this? Or are they completely out of the question? That has nothing to do with it because they're not employed. First, how are the transport workers affected? You and others, because I know you're representing all transport workers or most transport workers.
Right. Then that situation continues to evolve. It's too early to tell. So this ruling we're talking about in Georgia and South Carolina just came out, I think, 2 hours ago before you and I are meeting here. And so the implications and the response from the companies, I think, is forthcoming. We may hear something tonight, maybe tomorrow, if not by the end of the week, hopefully. And also same thing from the unions. Again, we've been talking about how the union leadership and
Right.
management have been pushing this. And so we're very anxious to hear how it is that the union representation responds to this. And when they say, oh my gosh, we don't have to do this anymore, what are they going to do? How are they going to do it? Again, you have several companies, most companies in the airline industry in the United States, who are saying that the only reason why we're doing this is because of a federal mandate. So it's logical to say, well, now that it's being struck down, there's no more need to have these mandates at the workforce. However, there are other companies that, similar to the hospitals and the healthcare workers, they're private companies, they're private employers, and they're having their own mandates. Now, this is a long game.
Right.
Again, these mandates are going to be struck down at the federal level, and then we're going to go back in and attack these companies individually so that we can, have a greater win across. Because again, we are a group of freedom flyers. We're in the transportation industry, but we're doing this really for all the citizens of this country, and really anyone else around the world is looking at this saying, we're not going to stand up for this. These are our rights that are being taken away. And again, the rights that come from God, they're not rights that come from the government. I'm a free entity, and I'm going to say no to this. And so that's what we're standing up for. And that's what we're hopefully going to continue to win on.
Great. Okay. Well, I don't know what else to say, except that, maybe I don't know what you could suggest to our Belgian audience. It's pretty discouraged at this point. People are fighting on a legal level there. And as I said, our system is different. And there are a few organizations and lawyers who are fighting for it. I don't know how we could, I'm not saying emulate your model, because maybe the mandate, our way of reaching our decision makers is different. But as far as organizing, I don't know if you have any suggestions or tips.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm not being an expert in Belgian law or European Union parliamentary procedures and all of that stuff. I can't say, but other than, just on a personal level, there's right and there's wrong, and regardless of what the government tells you is right, in your soul, in your body, in your core gut, whatever you call it, your conscience, whatever, that this is wrong, and it's going to be very uncomfortable for a while. It's still uncomfortable here, even though we're making these wins. And we realize too that people are looking at us all over the world, other governments, other citizens. And so I don't have any other advice other than to say, stay strong, and it's great. I don't mean to sound cheap in that, because there's a lot at stake here.
Don't worry.
But it's stay strong and stay convicted, because it's going to take, I don't know if we spoke about this in other talks or what, but I've been talking about the power of one. The government and these entities want to make you think that you are one person away from the mass group. They want to make you think you're crazy. They might want to make you think that you're the one who's not thinking correctly, or you're weird, or you're wrong, or whatever.
Fault because
One second. What I say to those people is that you need to turn that power of one around and say, I am one, but I'm going to influence you, and that's two. And we're going to influence 4 and 8 and 16 and 32 and 64, and it's going to keep growing. And so that power of one is very important and powerful. They realize that, but we need to turn that back on them.
Right. Okay, great. When you talk to your European counterparts, what do they tell you?
They say that there's some momentum. Now, again, their legal system, and especially the Swiss, colleagues,
Right.
they are a little different, and they are having momentum, but to the speed and degree to which we are, I don't know yet. And I think that
Yeah.
again,
Okay.
this is long-term, long game. And also
Okay.
one last point here quickly, just you had questioned about the passengers. That is next. If we lose this, the passengers are next. And so it won't be, you can't travel domestically. It's going to be almost nearly impossible to travel internationally if we don't succeed. And so that's why we're fighting too, because if the whole thing's going to come crashing down if we don't. And the way of life that we've known it forever is over. So that's why we're fighting.
Great. So does that mean you are attacking this House Bill 4980 that is trying to get people vaccinated to travel? Is that being attacked, or is it something more general?
Both. We're raising awareness because we realize too, again, we can't do this ourselves, but we can tell other people about it, and they can write their representatives, and they can make
Okay.
a stink there. But also, because it's also in the US, there's the Senate, there's Congress who makes rules, but then there's also offices in the executive branch underneath the president who think that they can make rules. For example, these federal mandates. Now, this was originally announced back in September 9th, actually. And now we're here at December 7th. And so it's been 3 long months, and there's been a lot of damage done in that time. And so we're trying to prevent any damage, even before it starts. So that's
right. Great. Well, thank you so much again for this wonderful news. Again, keep us posted. I just wish you the best. And because I really think that these victories give a lot of people hope and just kind of muster up their sense of their own empowerment in numbers, and also just working through a concrete system. You're really going through the law, like you said, you're going through the courts, and that is having an effect. And it is having effects elsewhere. You've heard about the German lawyer, Reinhard Fulmich, who's doing the Nuremberg 2 trials. And yeah, so that all these actions coming together, hopefully, like you said, it's piecemeal. It's like little things at a time, just chipping away at the block.
Yes. And what a great individual he is, by the way. I mean, talk about inspiring. And anytime I hear him speak, he's great. So
he's so clear. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much again, and keep going. Good luck. And hopefully we'll hear about other victories. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. God bless you.
You too. Yeah.